Yeah, I don't know why that one's on. Why they're cleaning on a Friday night. But just for me, from an early age, I always felt different. I was really shy. I had a really hard time making friends. I never felt like I really fit in anywhere. And never really knew why.
You're supposed to do that.
Our family.
But I just,
I'm gonna put it down there.
is it on now? It's a good thing it's a small group tonight.
Kelsey.
And it's helping with my nerves. I'm not shaking, so that's good. But yeah, I never really knew why, but there was just something different about me. And when I was a kid, my parents drank. I mean, they drank like normal people, and they would let us, if I asked, they would let me try whatever they were drinking. And they kind of had a policy that they would rather me have a little bit at home than go out and, you know, do God knows what with God knows who and get into trouble away from home. So I don't remember the first time I tasted alcohol. I don't remember the first time even really that I got drunk. But I remember from a very early age that I really liked the way that it made me feel. And just that warm, fuzzy, like everything was okay in the world and I could just relax, and it made me more social. Even, you know, with my family, I could talk more and I could be more outgoing, and, you know, and so there was just something about it that I knew that I needed more of that, and, you know, that was something that I was going to be chasing for a very long time. And as I got older, you know, I would do okay with, I'd maybe make some friends for a while, and then I'd struggle. And then when I hit about 15, I started to really suffer from depression and anxiety, and just really went into a downward spiral and was acting out more. And so then it became, you know, how can I get my hands on alcohol? And I wasn't very good at at rebelling. I remember one time my dad had a big bottle of vodka, and I filled up a whole water bottle with it and took it to school. And I didn't think, like, he's gonna see that half the bottle is missing. I didn't think to replace it with anything. I mean, I really, like, I wanted to be the rebel, but I wasn't very good at it. And apparently I would post on social media about drinking at school, and like I was, you know, I was trying to fit in and trying to be like, you know, the bad kid, but I wasn't doing a very good job of it. But at home, things were getting worse. I was, you know, acting out. I was constantly fighting with my parents, and especially with my dad. We would have these arguments that would just spiral out of control to the point where we had no idea what we had started arguing about in the first place. And they would go on until 2 a.m, and I gotta get up and go to school, and he's gotta get up and go to work, but he won't let me go to bed because we're both so stubborn and bullheaded. So things were not good in my household, and I have a little sister who is 11 years younger than me, and much later on, she shared how all of this affected her, and that I basically ruined her childhood because all the attention was always on me. It was always negative, and she was always ignored, and we never had a relationship. And she was a little bitty kid when I was going through all this turmoil, and so it caused a lot of pain in my family, more than I realized at the time. And so on top of trying to get a hold of alcohol whenever I could, another thing that I did was that I was always in a relationship. I always had to be dating somebody. And so when I was 18, I had the brilliant idea to get married, and then I could get out of my parents' house, and I could just get away from all the negativity, because I thought they were the problem, and I thought the negativity was coming from them. And that was always my mentality, was that everyone else was the problem. I was the innocent victim. I never did anything wrong. And, everything would be solved if I could just get away from everybody else that was causing all of my problems. And so I did that. And he joined the Air Force. We got stationed in Little Rock, Jacksonville, but at the Little Rock Air Force Base. And immediately we made friends with some older people that could buy us alcohol on base. And so at that point, we were drinking every night, I was drinking every night. I have no idea what his drinking was like, because I wasn't paying attention to anybody else. And as you might expect, at such a young age, and with everything else going on with me, that relationship didn't last very long. But by the time that it ended, I was getting blackout drunk every single night. And that was actually the first time that I thought, I wonder if maybe could I have a problem with alcohol? I was 19 years old. And so I came up with this brilliant plan that if I could go a whole year without drinking, that I would prove to myself I wasn't an alcoholic, and I was good, and I could drink again. And I did go a whole year without drinking, but I wasn't sober at all that year. And that was the time when I started getting introduced to a lot of other substances and ways of numbing myself and not having to deal with my feelings and not having to deal with whatever was going on inside of me that I didn't understand, and I just wanted it to go away. And then after that year, I added the alcohol back into the mix. So things escalated really bad from there. There were several years that I don't have a lot of recall. I don't remember a lot of the things that happened. I know I made a lot of really bad choices. I know I put myself in a lot of really dangerous situations. And yeah, I'm very grateful that, I came out of that alive. But I learned from that time that I had to kind of do things differently. So, because I knew every time that I picked up a drink, I never learned how to pace myself. I would try, and I would try, I heard somebody say, like, to hit that sweet spot and then just kind of ride that buzz. But I could never do it because I would get impatient. And so I, just down the whole thing and wait 2 minutes. Well, and I don't feel anything yet. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep going. And then they'd all hit me at once. So I'd pass out or black out. And so I realized that I needed to be in a safer situation when I did that, when I drank. I didn't drink in public. I mean, I didn't like get drunk in public. I didn't drink at bars. I chose to drink at home or, with people that I trusted, because I had no idea what I was going to do once I started drinking. And I knew I wasn't going to stop until one of those things happened. And that worked out a lot better as far as, the situations that I was putting myself in. When I was, I also, over the years, I was prescribed a lot of pain medication starting also when I was like 17. So I was mixing a lot of different things. I was really risking my life every time I took a drink or did anything, because the combination of things that I was prescribed alone could have killed me. And then I just didn't really care about my safety as far as whether I lived or died. I cared about my safety as far as the people I was around and the situations I was in, but I had several attempts on my life over the years, and I honestly don't know how I'm still here. And just looking back on the things that I put my family through and that I put myself through, it's unfathomable, how selfish I was, how self-centered I was, how I didn't think about anybody else in my life. And it wasn't until one of those attempts that I landed in the hospital again, and my parents came to me and basically said, "You have a problem and you are not leaving unless you get help." And that was 28. So from the time that I first thought that I might have a problem at 19, it wasn't until I was 28 that I first sought help, and it wasn't even of my own decision at that point. There were a lot of other things in between there. Like to skip over some more of that stuff. We don't need any more of the negative and all of that. But so I told my parents, I said, "Okay, fine." I said, "But I want to go somewhere that is just women. I don't want distractions. I just want somewhere that I can just focus on me and, my recovery, and I don't want any of that. I've been to other places and, everybody's just hooking up, and I don't want to deal with any of that." So they found an amazing place, which has since shut down, which I hate, in Henrietta, called Tiger Mountain. And that was where my recovery journey began. And I'd done some pretty severe damage at that point, that last time, and I wasn't functioning very well when I first went in, and couldn't think well. I was having spasms all over my body. It was a mess. But those ladies took me in, with just open arms. They were so loving and so kind. And the first night I was there, and I sat down and started talking to some of the other ladies, and for the first time in my life, I started hearing from someone else, my story, people that lived my life, people that understood me. And that was the first time I felt like I ever found a place that I fit in, with a bunch of drunks and addicts in this little treatment center in the middle of nowhere. And, you know, it was really neat, but the problem was, you know, we say that you have to get sober for yourself. You can't do it for somebody else. And so that first time I was being forced into it, and I was trying to do it for my parents and doing it for my family, and that just wasn't going to work, and I ended up leaving early, and I moved into a sober living house, but it turned out to be a really sick sober living house. And just say it only took me 6 weeks to realize that I really was powerless. And I called them back myself and said, please tell me you have a bed for me. I'm coming back tomorrow. Like, and I started doing it for real. And that made all the difference for me. And, you know, we had groups and we did some meetings there, but I started working the steps just with my counselor, and it wasn't even the real, you know, proper AA steps. It was out of an NA workbook. But I started feeling a difference immediately. And for me, the aha moment came when I did step 4 for the first time. And it wasn't the full step 4, but it was enough that, you know, I made my list of resentments and brought it back to her, and she said, okay, so now tell me, what is your part in all of these? And I'm like, my part? I didn't do anything. I am a totally blameless victim, and all of these people are just out to get me. The whole world is out to get me, and I don't know what you're talking about. And you know, she just kind of laughed at me and was like, you're gonna have to dig a little deeper. And really, you know, and so we dissected a couple together, and she pointed out okay, well, maybe this could have been your part. And once it clicked, it was like, I don't really know how to describe it. It was the most freeing. It was my first glimpse at serenity. When I first started to be able to recognize that I was the problem, and almost every single thing on that list, I played at least a small part, and most of them I played the biggest part in. And then I wasn't the victim in everything. And that night was the first night in I don't know how many years that I went to bed and I didn't have a million thoughts running through my head. I wasn't reliving my entire life and every argument I'd had, everything. It was just quiet and calm. And I'd never experienced that before, and I wanted more of that. And so that time I stuck it out. I stayed the whole 90 days. And we got to go to some outside AA meetings. I bought my first big book at a meeting in Henrietta. And, you know, I was determined, like, I want a better life for myself. I saw what these ladies, you know, who were running the place with 25 or more years of sobriety, I saw how happy they were and how, they were happy, joyous, and free. And I wanted that for myself. And so when I got out, I got into a different, healthier, sober living house that was going to hold me accountable, because I needed that. I didn't know. I'd lived by myself for many years before I got sober, and I was terrified of trying to do that again. I didn't trust myself. And I needed to learn how to be a responsible adult in society and not rely on my parents to give me money for everything to keep me off the street and to, make sure that I had a roof over my head, because that was their way of helping for a long time. And didn't realize that, how enabling that was. And so I started going to meetings. I started going, my first meeting that I went to when I got out was at Action. And I was going 5, 6, 7 times a week. And it took me a while. It took me 3 tries, but I finally found a sponsor that I was able to really form a connection with and work with, and we've been working together for over 6 years now. And she's just amazing and somebody that I can call about anything, anytime. Actually, she is going to be officiating mine and Billy's wedding next month. That's the kind of relationship that I've built with my sponsor. And started going through the steps. And, step 1, once I finally, made that connection, it was really easy because my life was an absolute mess. The problem, I was kind of backwards from a lot of people. I didn't struggle with my life is unmanageable part, but I struggled with being powerless over alcohol. I knew my life was a mess. I just didn't want to admit that alcohol was the reason my life was a mess. And I slowly started rebuilding relationships, and with my family, I had done a lot of damage, and we had tried family therapy at different times over the years, and never really gotten anywhere. And since I've been sober and stayed sober and made amends with them, my relationship with my family today is better than it ever was before I ever picked up drink. I'm building a relationship for the first time with my little sister. It's starting from scratch. So that's hard to do when you're in your 20s and 30s, but we're doing it. And life has just gotten better and better. Although, I will not say that it has been without struggles and hardships. About 3 years sober, I went through the hardest thing I think I probably ever dealt with, or just about. And if it had not been for my AA family and the women in my sober living house, I don't know how I would have gotten through that sober and stable. And they held me as I just sit and sobbed like a little baby on the couch for days on end. And they helped me manage my life when I couldn't make sense of it and I couldn't wrap my mind around what was going on. They laid out the plan for me and said, this is what you're going to do, and these are the consequences if you don't do it. And I don't know where I would be if I hadn't had all of that support and all of that structure around me and people holding me accountable. But something really amazing also happened right around that time. My sponsor called me one day and she said, how would you like to work at Central Service? And I'm like, well, that sounds amazing. At this point, I'm literally driving for Uber and Lyft and DoorDash and every possible delivery company you can think of, just trying to make ends meet. And the first time it came up and I went and interviewed, and I was like, I can't imagine why they would want to hire me. Like, I've only got 3 years sober. Like, my life is a mess. I'm trying to keep it together in my interview and not let them see how much of an emotional mess I am at the time. And the first time through, it went really well, and they ultimately decided to hire someone else, but they told me, you know, you were our second choice, and, you know, something doesn't work out with this guy, then, you know, you'll be next in line, we'll give you a call. And so right as all of the craziness is happening, and I mean, like, craziness to the point where I'm having to file police reports and protective orders and changing home groups, because you can't tell someone they can't attend an AA meeting. And so instead of risking that person showing up and, you know, having to leave because I'm there, I chose to remove myself so that they could attend if they so choose, you know, if they chose. And that's when I came to wisdom. But in the middle of all of that, I find out that that person they hired didn't work out and didn't last very long, and the job was mine if I wanted it. And that has been the biggest blessing that I've experienced. And, you know, not just getting to help people on a daily basis, but I get to meet people from all over the place and connect with AA people. And it's brought me out of my shell. It's helped me develop so many skills. Like, I was told the other day that I have an aptitude for accounting. Like, I'm not good at math,